being joined on the program by the former Minister of Sports under the Muhammadu Buhari administration, Mr. Solomon Dalung. He joins us from our Abuja studio. Mr. Dalung, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Good evening, Nigerians, and a compliment of the season.
Yes, compliment of the season to you. Let's just begin with something I noticed briefly. Well, the president is actually in Ghana. I'm sure he's on his way back from Ghana. But Ghana has now gotten its first vice president, female vice president, I should say, since their independence and since their fourth republic. We haven't been that fortunate to get this. I'm just curious to find out from you as a politician. Is Nigeria ever going to be ready in the short term for female leadership at that level? Because I think the highest political office we've seen by a woman in Nigeria is Patricia Ete, and she left under controversial circumstances as the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Right now, the Senate is made up of maybe 4 or 6 women. The same abysmal number is also for women in the House of Reps. So I just needed you to speak to the issue of women representation in politics in Nigeria.
Let me congratulate the first female president of the Republic of Ghana.
Vice President.
The milestone recorded, yes, female vice president, and the milestone recorded so far in their democratic journey. Now back to the issue of female representation in Nigeria, and the hope of when likely are we going to have a woman either as a vice president or a president. I think, in my own opinion, the male leadership is working very hard to unbundle the access for women to access power. Because looking at the way governance has been handled by men with a predominant population and the abysmal performances and lack of even development, progress, things are changing so fast, especially with the current situation. So I see a situation where in the future, the political dynamics will have to be a power balance, not only a geopolitical power shift, but we will be heading towards even a geo-demographic and a shift towards even having female incorporated within the structure of leadership. So that is likely going to come very, very soon, especially looking at the future, 2027.
Okay, it will be interesting to see because some of us are he for she. We would like to see that level because I know there was once PDP, I've forgotten her name. I think it's Sarah Jibril. I think that's her name. She even contested in the primaries.
Jibril.
Sarah Jibril. I think she had only 1 vote or no vote. So that's just to tell you how difficult it is for women to access power. But that's a conversation for another day. Before we come to the issue of the current administration and how they are managing the affairs of state by your own assessment, I know I listened to you talk about Muhammadu Buhari and his administration. I don't know what you were. Some people are saying the administration, in their words, were a monumental disaster. Others are saying this government is gaining from some of the things it left off, like the refinery and some of the roads. I don't know what yours will be, but I remember you said in that conversation that Buhari was used and dumped. He was a stranger in his own government. Maybe you can speak to that.
Well, yeah, in one of the last interviews I had in a podcast with one of your staff here, I did mention that as we continue to heap blames on the Muhammadu Buhari's government and then the bulk shifting, that, oh, we inherited this, we inherited that. President Muhammadu Buhari, like I said, was a stranger in his own government. And that government of Muhammadu Buhari was even run jointly by the current president, because He nominated about 5 ministers in that government, and he nominated even a vice president. And coming to the issue of President Muhammadu being a stranger in his own government, what I meant actually was that there was an initial intention upon which we campaigned. We got the buy-in of majority of Nigerians and their investments in campaigns to produce President Muhammadu Buhari. But the government was not a reflection of the stakeholders who brought it into office. Rather, we had the emergence of a power cult that sort of hijacked power at that level, and that things were completely done out of context of the initial promises and the covenant had with Nigerians. So the president was more or less a stranger in a government where he was popularly elected, and the government failed woefully to meet its campaign promises.
I know that. So let's come to the current administration. What's your view of the current administration, the person and the president called Bola Tinubu? Because you've also said that President Bola Tinubu is surrounded by a sophisticated cabal. That's how you reference this government.
Well, Nigerians should understand when the discussion about cabal is raised. I know some previous presidential aides in their books they publish and interviews had tried to downplay the existence of a cabal in the Nigerian presidential system. And I think will be very, very unfair to posterity to deny the existence of such very dangerous political element that will take over power, pursue its own ulterior motive using the popular manifesto that was used to gain power. Of course, President Muhammadu Buhari's government had cabal. That is known, and that I've attested to. But I'm saying that President Muhammadu Buhari's cabal was made up of people who were not quite informed, who had little experiences in politics and public administration and governance. And so their activities were more or less limited to their parochial view of understanding of power relations and extending of their hands into helping themselves with public purse. But President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's cabal is made up of sophisticated and ambitious group of people who had a very long history in power. They are experienced, they are educated, and so they have a sound knowledge of what power is. And since they are an ambitious set of people, the presidency will suffer more than that of President Muhammadu Buhari, because their capacity to manipulate power, their capacity to also build either security barricades around the president and stifle information from getting to the president except that which they wanted, and then the control of human traffic of those they will want to access the president. This cabal are masters, and therefore they will be more dangerous. They are more dangerous, really, than any cabal in the history of this country, to the best of my own knowledge.
All right, Mr. Dalung, picking it from your statement that you just made now, is there anything you think they are doing, the people that are shielding, protecting, or stopping the president or limiting him from knowing the reality on ground. What exactly are you seeing as the impact on ground from what is going on within the presidency?
Well, from my experience as somebody who has served in government and was very, very close with the president and understands how these things work, there are instances I can make reference to. Let's take the issue of the nomination of ministers. I mean, there were ministers that were nominated and a letter signed by the president sent to the National Assembly. Some of them were dropped before they could arrive at the National Assembly. Some arrived at the National Assembly before they were informed that they had been changed. And there were a war of words in Kano, to be specific, where the national chairman was alluding to the fact that they didn't know who brought or who nominated or brought the name for nomination. That is evidence of the power play of a cabal who will substitute names, try to introduce names, manipulate even records, presidential records at strategic locations to distort information. Another incident I can refer to was during the protest. There was a protest that was declared in this country from the 1st to the 10th of August. There was a 40-day notice given by the organizers of the protest against bad governance. They had also their demands. And 4 days into the protest, the president addressed the country, and his address was completely as if he arrived from a different planet. The issue of the protest was not even given any attention, either condemning it or attempting to explain or appealing. The president only did that shortly after 2 or 3 days when he met with journalists again and was appealing to Nigerians and the protesters about the policies of government. So this rigmarole that is happening within the corridor of power is evidence of the acts of cabal. There are so many, but time is our enemy.
Okay, I want to throw in as many questions as possible. So what would be your assessment of the management of the resources of Nigeria? Because depending on who you're speaking to, the supporters are saying it's doing pretty well, it's resetting the country, it will take a bit of time. The average Nigerian is saying this is the worst they've ever had, and they are really tired and they're exhausted from the cost of living, for instance. What's your own view?
Well, the assessment of every government in Nigeria should be with Chapter 2 of the Constitution, which begins by saying the primary aim of government is the overall well-being of the citizens. And then you can also go to the Bible again, where this verse that says, when the righteous are in power, the people rejoice, and when the wicked are in power, the people mourn. So when you take this biblical verse and align it with Chapter 2, you now come back to the issue of what is the situation in the country. Are Nigerians rejoicing over the policies of this government? Certainly, I believe Nigerians are not, because at each point I interacted with common people, they are frustrated and they are not speaking good of the government and even the country itself. Now, when we talk about how have they been able to manage the resources of this country, let me begin by congratulating the president, because I read that Port Harcourt Refinery and Wari are on stream, even though I had not confirmed that. But let me congratulate them. I'm not criticizing, because if I criticize and it is true, they will arrest me like they have arrested my friend. So I'm congratulating them for bringing the 2 refineries on stream. But I think there is much that we expect from this government, which is accountability. What has happened to the proceeds of the fuel subsidy withdrawn from the 29th of May till date? Because the development on the ground is not commensurate. If Abacha's withdrawal of fuel subsidy was not complete, it was just a percentage, and we could see massive development cutting across all sectors of the economy. And here you have a holistic withdrawal of fuel subsidy. Yet, Nigerians are groaning, suffering, and facing untold hardship, with the president telling us that, well, he has no regret over his policies. We don't expect him to regret. But of course, for me, I expect him as a father of the nation to be compassionate. Because if he's not regretting, it means what he is doing, as well intended as it may be, I mean, the intention is not quite noble, which is not part of leadership.
Well,
so I think this government...
Mr. Dalung, just a moment. What would you want him to do differently?
I expect the president to have been compassionate, that even if he believed in the policies and did not carry Nigerians along, he has a responsibility to convince the country, because Nigeria does not mean him and his government. But the over 230 million people are Nigerians, and there must be Nigerians before Nigeria. But from his statement, it meant, I mean, even if Nigerians do not exist, he doesn't bother, which is not good enough for a leader.
Okay, I know you mentioned in passing that let's talk about the civic space. I don't know which of your friends that you talked about. Maybe tell us which of your friends that criticized the government and was arrested.
Comrade Mahdi Shehu is cooling up in Kaduna Medium Correctional Facility, and he's been prosecuted for uploading an unverified video.
So what do you...
He's a non-critic. He's a non-critic of APC and this government.
So are you saying that the APC is intolerant to dissenting voice? Is that your assertion? Is that what you're trying to communicate?
Of course. The APC is intolerant to, I mean, the voice of dissent. Because the management of the protest is evidence. I mean, a protest is a constitutional right of citizens to express their grievances. And the Police Act also empowers the IG to protect citizens who are protesting. Notices were given to the government, and the government descended, I mean, on the citizens. Many lost their lives. Many were arrested. And instead of addressing the issue, the citizens were referred to as terrorists, those who protested. The National Security Advisors referred them to as terrorists. He addressed the National Council of State and informed them that they had terrorists in custody. We were waiting for the terrorists to appear in court just for us to see underage children who had been starved, malnourished, in custody, and they were collapsing. That forced the judge to abandon the trial. So that singular act, and the government ended up the trial, discontinued the trial, and some form of compensation had been paid by the governors all over. But had the government apologized for that? Certainly not. So that is an act of intolerance under democracy.
Are you worried? I know you were perhaps a founding member of the APC and you were very close to President Muhammadu Buhari. Now, we have the Tinubu administration running into 2 years by May this year. Are you worried about the future of that party, of the ruling party? And if you have worries, what are those worries? Given the fact that you were founding members, what have they done or missed? Because they have their posturing as well.
Well, I am worried, to be very honest, as a founding member of the party. I believe in the principles upon which the party was founded. I believe in the manifestos of the party. But the way the party had managed governance is worrisome. And if this party continues the way it is, where, of course, internal democracy within the party completely had been sacrificed, that appears not to exist again. And without internal democracy, democracy becomes a sham. So I am worried, again, looking at the electoral process. Our electoral process had not been quite transparent enough. Therefore, if the party continued on this trajectory of lack of internal democracy and without a transparent electoral process, one, Nigerians will become frustrated, and electoral apathy or voter apathy will step in, and people might not be interested in democracy any longer. So this government has a responsibility, or APC has a responsibility, to improve on its credentials. These two indices, democratic indices I've made reference to improve upon them. And of course, if they are going to take me up on this, let me guide them with the current situation. The national chairman of APC is from Kano, Northwest. Before election, the national chairmanship was zoned to North Central. Abdullahi Adamu was elected. By the constitution of the party, after Abdullahi Adamu had resigned, the next person should also come from the North Central, because, I mean, power has been shared. But you can see now that the North Central had been shortchanged. The Northwest had benefited more. It has speaker there, it has deputy senate president, and it has the national chairman there. This is anti-democratic.
Okay. So just last question, if you can land in 30 seconds. I always throw this to my guests because we will get to a point where we'll go for another election. What form of reforms would you want to see in the Electoral Act to better serve the Nigerian people so that their voices eventually count when they go out to the polls? In 30 seconds.
INEC should digitalize election process in Nigeria. We have elected people using digital technology all over. So why is it difficult for INEC to use the same process to elect leaders? I mean, people have emerged from different processes globally, and it has been credible. So why are we afraid of using the same method when Nigerians can, from their smartphone, elect presidents? So we should digitalize the process of electing our leaders, and we should also give Nigerians, whether in Nigeria or in diaspora, the right to decide who governs Nigeria.
All right, Mr. Dalung, thank you so much. Do you have any future ambition to run for any office? I know you served as minister. Are you going to run for any office anytime soon?
Well, you know, contesting election depends on the people. So if I'm invited by the people, I will run. But I think I'm also qualified to run for the presidency of Nigeria.
That's interesting. Okay, Solomon Dalung, former Minister of Sports under the Muhammadu Buhari administration. Thank you so much, sir, for coming on the program. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.